In 2002, Dead to Rights was released as a timed exclusive for the original Xbox. After its exclusivity deal with Microsoft expired, it made its way to the PlayStation 2 and GameCube. It received a sequel and a PSP game in 2005. The fourth and final game in the series released in 2010 on the PS3 and Xbox 360. I only played the first two games and I just plain didn't like them. The gameplay was boring, the levels were uninspired and bland, and the story was uninteresting. Up until a couple weeks ago, I had no idea that there was a Dead to Rights game released on the PS3 and 360. I picked it up at a local used game store and I figured for $5 it's worth a shot, right? The game starts off with our protagonist, Jack, coming off a boat badly wounded. A couple gang members of the city triad see Jack hurt and come over to hurt him even more.
Yeah, where is that f***ing mod of yours? Off chasing fire trucks? Or is he off humping some guy's leg?
Ha! You done f***ed up. I guess I totally forgot to mention that Jack has a killer, emphasis on killer, dog named Shadow. Shadow almost doesn't even look like a dog. He straight up looks like a wolf. A cute and cuddly thrown out little pup. Little pup. Shadow has been in all the Dead to Rights games so far, so if you never played any of the other games, don't worry, this isn't something brand new. The first chapter of the game has you play as Shadow protecting Jack from the bad guys trying to kill him. I never finished any of the previous Dead to Rights games because, like I mentioned earlier, I just didn't like it. But from what I can tell from my crack research team of watching YouTube videos, this is the first time you control Jack's partner, Shadow, in the Dead to Rights franchise. It looks like the intro is letting you play a section of a mission that is later in the game to intrigue you on how Jack even got this bad. This is actually a great and unexpected way to start a game. I love it. After that short prologue, we flash back 30 hours ago to Jack arriving to Temple Tower, where a group called the Union are holding the building and its workers hostage. Jack shows up because he's a detective at the GCPD, the Grant City Police Department. I watch a lot of the show Gotham, so anytime I hear them say GCPD, I always think that they're talking about Gotham City, which would actually make this game a little more exciting. Jack and Shadow can team up with Batman. Boom! Just came up with the new Dead to Rights reboot. You're welcome. This is the first time in Retribution that we get to see our protagonist up close. At first glance, I thought it was Chris Redfield from the Resident Evil series. And when he opens his mouth, it's the stereotypical buff white male voice you hear in all the majority of action games released in that generation.
Giving you a direct order, detective. You go in there, I'm taking your shield and your gun.
Here, you point it in that direction, and you pull this to make it go bang. Feel free to point it at a bad guy, if you ever end up facing one.
I really like the new over-the-shoulder perspective. It fits this game well. Plus, I'm actually sort of a sucker for that perspective. After running into Temple Tower against his superior's orders, you get an intro to hand-to-hand combat, and it feels awesome. It's tight and responsive, and also makes me feel like a total badass. You don't only learn to attack, but also block, counter, and even do these freaking awesome finishing moves. This is straight up the most badass game I have ever played. And we haven't even gotten to the guns yet. The second you open the elevator door to the floor while all the terrorists are holding the hostages, you disarm a person and in slow-mo shoot them in the face. See? What'd I tell you? Most badass game ever. Disarming enemies and shooting them with their own guns is hands down my favorite part of Dead to Rights Retribution. When you pick up a gun or take one from an enemy, you don't get much ammo at all, and when you're finished with it, you just throw it aside. That makes the game move at a faster pace. If you run out of ammo, run up, punch a dude, and start killing more people. You could sum up the game as a cover shooter. I feel like the cover shooter genre gets a lot of hate. I'm a huge fan of those type of games. But hey, to each their own, I guess. With all this murder, I totally forgot that our main protagonist is a police officer. Sometimes he cuffs enemies and talks about bringing them to justice. You're a mass murderer, dude. Self-defense and all, but 95% of the time, you shoot first. Yeah, bring these people to justice, Jack, by murdering every single one of them and using your prisoner as an elevator button presser.
What'd you do that for? Excuse me, sir.
Something that is pretty noticeable right away is that it suffers from some frame rate issues. It doesn't happen a lot of the time, but when there's too much going on screen at once, it seems to overwhelm everything and get all jittery. A perfect example is that much later on in the game, you need to attach some C4 to a helicopter while it's snowing out. It's so choppy in this chapter. I didn't know snow could overpower a PlayStation 3. After the Temple Tower mission, you go back to the GCPD and do a sparring match with your dad, who's also a part of the police department. This is where you get introduced to combos, and I have no idea why there are any in this game at all. It would be fine without it. Anytime you're in combat, it's normally in an all-out firefight, which means you're getting shot from all angles. So what's the point in even trying to pull these combos off? I guess it'll be fine on the easiest difficulty, but on normal mode, which is what I played on, it's not logical to do that. I normally just mash whatever works best in no particular order to get the job done and look as cool as possible doing it. In a good amount of chapters, you get to play as Shadow and stealth sections. These parts don't take up much of the game, but it's such a treat when you get to play as him. Hold down L2 and you can sense the people you need to take out and their heartbeats. If they're blue, then they don't notice you. If they're yellow, they may have noticed you. In red, they are all out ready to shoot you down. I find guns don't matter when you're a huge dog that kills scary dudes with guns on command. I almost forgot that you can give Shadow commands. You can tell him to go kill an enemy or stay. Now that we've talked about gameplay, let's dive into the story, or what little there is. It's not really an insult because what you've seen so far, it doesn't really scream heartfelt story with amazing characters and this life-changing narrative. The thing I can compare this game the most to is the movie London Has Fallen. It's a weird comparison, I know, but stick with me. My dad, remember my dad from my birthday episode who keeps pronouncing my name wrong? He likes big, non-stop action movies. So whenever London Has Fallen released, we went, just him and I, for his birthday, sort of a guy's night out type of thing. When we left, he said that was his favorite movie of all time. It says because it doesn't stop. It's all out, out action. Even when it quote-unquote slows down, it's still not slow. And that's how I feel about Dead to Rights Retribution. A big, fun, badass action movie that once it starts, it doesn't slow down. The big motivation story-wise starts in the second chapter. After fighting through a group called the Union that I mentioned before in the first mission of Temple Tower, Jack thinks the head of the Union, Riggs, has military training by seeing the way that they operated. After that combo training with your father that I mentioned earlier, you, along with Shadow and your dad, go to investigate a lead. They come upon plans of simulated type versions of Temple Tower from before. You come under fire, but luckily enough, SWAT Captain Redwater, who's a close friend of Jack and Frank, come to your rescue. After holding the gang members off, Jack and his father chase after Riggs, the leader of the Union, and another Triad member. Can you guess what happens? Huh? Can you? I guess spoiler alert if you really care. But yeah, his dad dies. All of the cutscenes, no matter the characters that are in it, are always sort of overacted, but this one is the cream of the crop. Just watch.
Dad! This is Slate, badge B26354. Officer down! Repeat, I've got an officer down! City Port, Dockside East, request immediate assistance! Oh God, no! Oh God! I can't stop the bleeding, I can't, I need help! Help! Oh God, no! Hold on! They'll be here any second, just... Jesus Christ, where are they? Dad, hold on! Oh God, hold on! Dad! Fight, Dad! God damn it, fight! Just fight! Stay with me, Dad, no! No, God damn it, Dad, fight!
Oh my God, Jack!
You touch me and things gonna fuck.
Tell me, why? My dad is dead!
Jack! Stop! You're killing him!
Him!
Jack! Killing him won't get you answers. It won't bring Frank back.
Faith, take care of my dad. Don't leave him here, in the dirt.
Where are you going?
To find answers.
So as you make your way through the game more and more, you find out it's the SWAT Captain Redwater who was behind this all along. It results in an awesome final fistfight between you and the longtime family friend that betrayed you. After you take revenge for your father's death by killing Redwater, it wraps up great with a touching funeral for your father as Jack and his longtime best buddy Shadow walk off into the sunset.
You really couldn't ask for a better ending. Although it's not the greatest storyline of all time, for what type of game it is, it's still really good. That type of game is just a non-stop action movie from front to back. The gameplay is really fun and rewarding with how you have to constantly be moving in and out of cover, taking enemies' guns from them, tossing it aside whenever you're out of ammo, rinse and repeat. Not to mention the awesome hand-to-hand combat with badass final takedowns where you literally break every bone in their body. It was a great change of pace playing as Shadow in those stealth sections. The biggest problem I have with this game is that if there's just a little too much going on screen at once, it drops frame rate like it's bad news. Who knew the most evil thing in a Dead to Rights game was snow? I think this game got overlooked because of its title Retribution. That's a generic ass title. It's up there with the likes of Revelations and Origin, something that Assassin's Creed is guilty for. I really hate using the word dumb fun to describe something, because if you like something, it's not dumb to you. But I like to call this sort of a podcast game. A game when you just sort of shut off your brain and listen to a podcast. Speaking of podcast, if I had to recommend one, it would be the Yeti Bros podcast on YouTube with TeslaChad, hey that's me, the Toka Show, and the Silver Screener. I mean, they are cool, cute, and talk about all sorts of gaming topics. They're new, so be kind and give them a subscription. That's just one I'd recommend. Dead to Rights Retribution was a big, badass, over-the-top action movie with great gameplay, combat, and a cute killer dog. I give Dead to Rights Retribution on PlayStation 3 an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks.